Yo, yo, yo! Welcome to another episode of the Ball of Bottom. We are talking Max basketball, and I'm joined as usual by the Grizzled Vet, a.k.a. the former Mac, a.k.a. the master of disaster himself. We got Natan Cohn, and we have with us our resident stat head, a.k.a. the professor, a.k.a. the Admir of Analytics. He's off camera, but will be on camera soon. Rabbeinu Shua Shlita. And we have with us His Excellency, the prophet of YU Doom, the man, the myth, the legend. We have Bob Quillman with us to revel in our destruction. And we are, of course, here to acknowledge the LA Rams for their victory in Super Bowl 56, blah, 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 blah. Let's get down to business. YU Max basketball. So, gentlemen, something is broken. Something is wrong. Something is off with the force. Bob, what are you seeing? What's happening here?
It's interesting, guys. I've watched most of the games since the return, since this semester started. And, you rolled through, what was it, 4 quick wins when they came back. So they were off for almost a month, came back, rolled through 3 or 4. And then, the Farmingdale State game and then the St. Joe Long Island game. I mean, the team, it's just like a different team. It's really strange to watch because the team that took the floor on December 30th, I mean, the confidence level was through the roof, coming into that game. And, I think that most of what's going on is mental, to be honest. Now, there's a lot of X's and O's things we can get into, but I believe that the team is playing very tentative right now. I think they're feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders. There's a lot of pressure on Max basketball that the rest of Division III probably doesn't quite have to that level. So, yeah, I'm interested to get into it with you guys. But what I'm seeing is a team that is playing without a ton of confidence as a team. A couple guys are, but as a team, there's a lot of guys playing without much confidence at all.
I mean, I can't remember who said this on Twitter. It might have been Ryan Scott but someone pointed out on Twitter that, or maybe it was you, Bob, but before that IWU game, you would see a Max team that came on the floor with 100% confidence that they would win every single game and that they'd be blowing people out. And now you see them coming onto the floor and they honestly don't know if they're going to get out of this game alive. And we definitely, a group of the Ball of Bottom, the other night just got on FaceTime and we're just kind of breaking down some of the X's and O's, as you said. And, Natan, we should get into that. But I think just off the top, it's pretty strange and deflating to see a bunch of guys kind of who you're so used to seeing playing in the flow of a game just come out and kind of be looking around, look like that deer in the headlights. And I think the place to start probably for me is Gabe Leifer, somebody who I love. I love him as a Mac, as a leader, as a role model. But one thing that I think has struck a lot of us is we're so used to seeing the offense roll through Gabe in the high post and Gabe kind of getting, hitting guys, back cutting, and if not, putting the ball on the floor and muscling his way in. And we've just seen a lot of very kind of tentative Gabe play in the low post, if he even gets to the low post at all. A lot of passing it back out to the 3-point line, not hitting back cutters as much. I mean, it's weird to see some of these players we're so used to kind of coming out there and playing with confidence play so tentative.
One thing I would say, Ari, is yesterday St. Joe of Long Island did a really smart thing, I thought, which is they played zone almost the whole game. And so what you're referring to, they take that away by playing a zone. Now, when you play a zone, what you're saying is we're going to give up a bunch of wide open shots and we're going to gamble that Yeshiva misses those. And I think that was a really smart idea because you're playing off, hey, this team lost a couple games ago. They had a rough one after that. They've kind of lost their mojo. Big home crowd, pressures on Yeshiva. Let's see if they make their shots or not. And Ryan Terrell at all times looks confident. He's the guy that in a zone, he'll shoot it wherever, looks completely confident. Rest of the team, though, really looks tentative against the zone. I don't know, Natan, did you see that same thing? What did you see yesterday?
Yeah, seeing it live yesterday and even Ryan at the beginning, right? He almost had to get into it because he passed up a couple of those 14-footers right away. And then he started just, again, anytime he was open, taking that shot, and he hit most of them coming the paint. But that we saw in a couple games, right, where you had Gabe from the free throw line, or Lasko from the free throw line, or whoever it was. It's looked like they're looking for the backdoor cut, right, or the big 3-pointer, but not taking some of the things that are right in front of them. I mean, like that middle last night was wide open. They could have, operated the middle or even driven through the zone. It wasn't that the guys up top were stopping the penetration either, but they were so committed to running the motion offense the same way they'd been running it against the man, but it just wasn't providing the same opportunities because they were sloughing off and they were playing, and you couldn't get the back cut as consistently. So the fans kept saying, well, let's just take the jump shot. Like we were sitting there and they're saying, and then Ryan started hitting it. And that's when they started coming back and getting a little bit going. But they need to take a little bit more of those opportunities. 100% of the zone, I think, threw them off. And it sort of, started asking, well, why don't we show different looks? Why are we not thinking about some of those other ways? It was clear that St. Joe's, it was clear that Farmingdale, right? Even Farmingdale in the first game. But every team that comes in or that we go to has a game plan for the Max offense. More so in this second half. I think one of the things we noticed was that 14 games before the IW game, 10 of 14, the Max met or exceeded their average around 86 a game. They were there. It's only been in 2 out of the 8 games since that they've been able to get to that average. So the offense isn't running as well, and that's because people are taking things away, and that's what we're seeing a little bit of.
I still think, though, that the biggest issue is on the other side of the floor. It's
100%.
like, how many points did the Max score last night? I don't have the box score in front, but it was enough to win a basketball game, And
yeah.
If you look at the other side of the floor, something's not quite right there. Teams have really found some things to exploit. If you look at the way the Max are guarding dribble drive and the complete, a guy dribble drives, and you've got, I was watching the game, the Farmingdale game and the one last night over again today, just in preparation for this. And when a guy dribble drives, he ends up with 4 guys near him. If that guy just looks any direction, there are wide open guys on the perimeter. So something's just off with the way the Max are guarding dribble penetration. In some cases, they're gambling too much on post touches. So a guy that's not a great post player is getting the ball down low and has 3 guys near him. And if he just passes out of it, he's got open guys around him. So I feel like the X's and O's issue here is way more on the defensive end than it is on the offensive end. I don't know, Ari, if you're seeing the same thing, but I'm seeing this being a defensive issue.
Yeah, and Shua has been able to show this with the numbers. Like from an offensive efficiency perspective, the Max are pretty much where they've been all year, even if you can see kind of a little more tentative play. It's really in the defensive end where they're getting killed. And I think in the wake of the IWU game, there were kind of 2 lessons that the Max needed to learn there, and they've kind of learned one and not the other, and that has been hurting them. And the 2 lessons you needed to learn were you needed more intensity, and you need more intelligence. The intensity thing was just a matter of like playing with energy, playing aggressively, but the intelligence was preparing for other teams and actually not just relying on your athleticism to stop offensive players, especially people penetrating into the middle. And what we've seen is extra intensity from the Max, but without any rhyme or reason. And that's been hurting them. And Nathan, you actually pointed this out last night. We've been seeing Max players like make inexplicable choices to double on the pick and roll, even if that ends up just leaving great shooters open, or if it ends up they'll jump out on a guy who can't dribble in anyway. And all he needs to do then is just pass it off or hit a pick and pop for a 3, or just throw it in and have a guy know the clear way to penetrate against a Max defense that has to scramble to recover inside. So they're giving up just great looks at the rim because they're jumping out, doubling, showing all this intensity, but without any thought behind it.
Yeah, you saw that a few times, well, not a few times, more than a few times last night, where you're doubling at the 35-foot line to a guy that's not going to shoot the 3. So you're showing, and especially when you know that the St. Joe's offense, their goal is to get it in Spencer below, right? Like that's their goal. They want to get into big number 35. So if they can get you to show on a pick and leave him open going towards the basket, that's exactly what they want. And they were sort of capitalizing on that a few times. But you're right, there's over pursuit. If they would just play their men and key in on the things that the other team wants to do and just hold it, right? It seems like every defensive play, they're looking for a steal, not a stop. Right, if they would just focus on stops, not steals, you probably would see them win most of the time. I think to your point, Ari, they are 100% consistent when it comes to the half court. Their efficiency ratings are the same. The problem is if you're not playing defense, you lose all the transition that really is what helps power their offense. It adds those extra 20, 25 points a game, and we have not seen a significant transition game in the past handful of games. Just a few highlights of some breaks off of good individual play, like Gabe steal the other night, and some of those individual steals up top.
The other thing I think is telling is, the Macs are still working through personnel and rotations here in late February, and that's not a good place to be at this point. Teams that are playing great right now are trotting out the same 5 starters and have the exact same rotation, to where if I'm watching Illinois Wesleyan, I know exactly when Ryan Soroka's coming in for the most part. And I understand why Coach Steinmetz is doing it. It's because things haven't been going great. But if you look at, he's changed the starting lineup from Jordan Armstrong. He started Zucker. I think the rotations, he's still experimenting. He's looking for something. If you look at the minutes played, Adi Markovic came in and played, and I think played pretty well yesterday. He's had other games where he hasn't played a lot. So you're still here in mid-February looking for your starting lineup and your rotations. And that tells you all you need to know about the confidence level in the personnel right now.
Well, some of these lineups also seem as well without rhyme or reason. And to your point, Bob, it kind of seems like experimentation, maybe like for the sake of experimentation. I mean, Nathan, you want to talk about some of those non-scoring lineups that we saw?
Yeah, we talked about this now a lot for the past 2 weeks in terms of seeing the exact same thing, right? Rotations that we actually haven't seen, guys coming in to get minutes in the first half and then not seeing any time in the second half, not necessarily game dependent. Again, obviously they're going to be foul trouble and other game situations. We see in the Farmingdale game, right? Basically the whole second half played by only 5 guys in really heavy minutes by the what is now, I guess, the starting unit, although Lasco in exchange for Ofek in that game. So we've seen a lot of different interplay. One of those lineups, which is, and to your point, we were talking about it, Adias kind of played himself out of minutes with his offensive performance. I mean, he's shooting an atrocious 15% on the year, only 20 shots. And then he was also, again, last game, even though he missed some shots, it was actually great to see him decisive. In a couple of games before, he seemed to not be sure what he wanted to do when he actually touched the ball on offense. But one of the issues that may be causing some of that is when he comes in, he's sitting usually on the floor with Jordan, and now lately been Jordan and Matan and Lasco, right? And maybe a Halpert or an Ofek. So the question is, like, what are you expecting him to do? He's not going to be, you can't lean on him as your third offensive option, and therefore it puts him in a little bit of a disadvantage. The question then becomes, can you start using him and other guys in more spots? So if you're going to play Ryan and Gabe 36, 38 minutes a game, right? So let's get a breather for them, but like, let's keep the core on the floor and rotate so that he's coming in and then not expected to be the ball handler. I don't think that's his role, right? So there are a couple guys who seem to be put into roles because the lineup is dictating that. The other night, I think we played Gav and Max Leibowitz off the bench in the same lineup, right? If you want to see what one of those guys can do, see it with a rotation that they're going to play with. They're never going to play together in a lineup. So why try in the first half in that lineup? Again, some of these things seem to be odd choices, looking for a spark, looking for something, but you're absolutely right. To be 22 games in and to be playing with your rotation in such a dramatic way to, again, starter change, whatever that might be. We've talked a lot about that, so I won't go into the Matan Jordan benefit, but that's where I say, like, it doesn't seem like just the players are being tight. It seems like the coaches are being a little tight as well and sort of looking for something, sort of rather than playing to strengths and game planning to weakness, game planning to other strengths.
That's where I kind of go back to, though, that this has a lot to do with pressure. So if 2 years ago, when these guys were sophomores, juniors, and you were a little more of the team sneaking up on everybody, that's a great place to be in. That's a fun place to be. You go on the road in the tournament, no one believes in you. and you just beat the daylights out of two teams in the NCAA tournament. And, last year was what it was, the COVID year, strange year. This year, you come into the season, everyone's got you in the top 5. You end up being ranked number 1. All of this publicity. I mean, I think these guys have so much on their shoulders from this whole, literally around the world type pressure. And now they're older. So now this is a junior, senior team. In some cases, a senior grad student team. That's different. The clock is ticking. If you lose a ball game and you lose another one, there's repercussions. There's finality to that. I think more than anything, that is what you're seeing right now, is you're seeing guys thinking about the repercussions of a missed jump shot with 2 minutes to play in a game tied, or the implications of a missed 3-pointer early in the game, that if you miss it, maybe you're going to go down 9. This is a mental thing. This is a confidence thing more than anything. That's how I see it, guys. That's what I'm seeing from way, way, way outside.
So that I just want to pick up on that for a second, Ari. Sorry. So
go ahead.
Because I think that's where I think some of us are coming back to the real question of Elliott completely has. I mean, he said it as much, right? He has the philosophy, right? He wants the player. They need to execute. We sort of let them play. You saw them in a couple situations that maybe we'll get the chance to ask about, just in terms of, last minute game planning, right? Like we saw an amazing play development in Rochester, Wash U today, right? So when you see your players suffering from that sort of confidence, what are your opportunities as a coach, right? Either within the game, before the game, to be able to help them out of that. Right, to help them out of that funk, to remind them, obviously, again, all the talk in the world about reminding game by game, all these things that they talked about before. Hey, the streak is gone. Let's just play, right? What other things can they be doing to sort of get these guys back?
Yeah. To me, it gets back to where we just went with the personnel. If you put the right rotation on the floor, the one that you get comfortable with, it's the best thing you can do for these guys. I like the small rotation that you guys play.
Yep.
I see what Jordan Armstrong brings to the table, and I think he's a talented kid. But the team from 2 years ago was a relatively small lineup. The one with Danny Katz in there, right? He was 6'4", right? I want to say he was 6'4".
Yep.
So he was a bigger guy, but Gabe was the biggest guy on the floor with that lineup. I like that lineup. I like the lineup where Gabe is the biggest guy. You surround him with 4 guys who can shoot it. I believe the best thing you can do is put the right players on the floor to get things clicking. And it's more that than any kind of motivational, inspirational game filming kind of thing, Natan. I could be wrong about that, but I think a lot of this comes down to your rotation and your personnel.
I mean, so that lineup would be, you have Gabe at the 5, and then around him, you're going to have Terrell, Halpert,
Ofek,
and one of Ethan Lasco. You can play Adi in that lineup, and as like a wrinkle, you can stick Matan in that lineup just for like a little extra size and energy. So and yet I feel like we're seeing that lineup pretty infrequently, and I cannot figure out this late in the season why. I mean, we kind of know what this team is. And I wonder how much, Bob, is, when we had Coach Joe Schwartz on the team, and we've heard from Elliott, over the years, the team does not like to do kind of game-specific game planning. And, Natan, you alluded to this earlier, just playing the system and letting it run. I think, part of the issue is, I think, Bob, you're right, some of this is nerves, but a lot of these teams that we saw earlier in the season and beat the pants off of them, they've been watching our tape. There's no question about it. And they know our tricks, they know our system, and they've figured out a way to at least slow it down. We're not showing new looks. We have, maybe one or two set plays that we run per game. And on the defensive end, we're not game planning for other teams. So I think some of this is, you threw this out, Bob, after the Farmingdale game. Is it possible that some of the Skyline teams are good? ? I don't know. I wouldn't go that far, but
no, they're better than I thought. I will say that, I didn't know anything about this.
There's some good young talent. I mean,
There's some
and they
good
made big
players.
shots.
I thought Farmingdale had really good players, and I thought the team last night played really hard and made huge shots. So the Skyline, I mean, look, it's not one of the better conferences in the country, but I now understand that every game is a battle and that there are good players on all of these teams. There's no question about that.
Yeah, so we have a question from the chat. Ross Blacker wants to know about your Bob anti-yeshiva tweet. I don't think it was anti-yeshiva, but
What tweet are we talking about here?
That's what Ari said. He wanted, like,
well, I asked which one.
You could pick like 10. It's all good.
The free. The truth is, I think I agree with this take. But you had tweeted the free top 25 pass ends now. I think I agree with that take.
No, that's been I've been very vocal about
that was
that,
previous
guys.
loss.
I feel like
we were already there.
Yeah, I'll just walk you through the progression. I haven't been shy. I felt like when Yeshiva was number one, that it was a number one without much proof. It was a number one against a bad schedule, and we were just going by the eye test. So then you get a good team in your own gym, and you get beat bad, and you only drop to 5, right? So you drop to 5. I thought maybe it might be more like 8, whatever. But then you lose to Farmingdale State, and now you're still in the top 15 with no good win. I think a lot of the voters gave Yeshiva a pass. It was meaning a pass of like, eye test, we think they're good. We think they're good. Brian Terrell's good. Gabe's good. We think they're good. I think there was a free pass going on that any other team in the country with that resume and lack of wins and 2 losses, like any other team, would not be ranked. That was my point.
You know, and Ephraim Fisher in the chat wants to know what is going on with OFEC. I mean, a lot of this is sort of the kind of a little bit of a disappearing act that sometimes feels like every now and then I will notice OFEC just coming in for that classic back cut where he'll get a great pass from a feed off of Gabe or Ryan and kind of muscle his way in for an easy layup. But Bob, do you think that OFEC falling off has to do with, I mean, is it a nerves thing? Is it a lack of confidence thing? What's going on here?
I'm guessing he's probably one of the guys that's caught up in the psychological part of this, but I think he's the guy you got to have on the floor. You're not going to win and figure this out without that guy. He's one of your most purely talented guys. He's got to know that he's going to play 32 minutes a game. He's a key guy. He gets to shoot. If he misses, he gets to shoot again. You need him going to the basket, hustling. Whatever his issue is, the solution is not to not play him. You know what I mean? Natan, do you see it that way? I feel like he's got to be on the floor.
100%. Go ahead.
Great heads of hair in the country.
And last night, listen, the best part of that St. Joe's matchup was seeing OFEC on number 14. There was some incredible, and Ryan played him one-on-one too. It was a lot of great hair action happening in that game last night. So that was always enjoyable for the fans. But
that's something we Jews are typically known for, but this team is bringing it. I'll tell you that.
I mean, you said something, I think it connects to the conversation we had before, which is, and OFEC is probably the one guy that if I'm putting myself in his shoes, I'm the one guy that's like a little bit, maybe Jordan a little bit too, but again, his play may be there. But like if I'm OFEC, I'm playing well. I score 12, 14 points. I'm one of the top scorers in the team. I shoot well. I bring in intensity. I play the game. And then I have a game like Farmingdale where I don't see the court in the second half, right? I see 1 or 2 minutes. I get replaced and then I'm not there, right? So and there have been multiple games like that where he's been taken out for long stretches. I think one was an injury, though he didn't play the second half. But either way, it's a guy that I'm expecting to get close to 30 minutes a game. And sometimes it's 35 and sometimes it's 20 or 18. He's a guy that needs to play to play, meaning he is in the flow of the offense. So he doesn't have the ball within his hands. He doesn't have the ball in his hands. He's not taking the best guy on defense either, right? A lot of cases, we've actually seen Ryan shift to whoever's giving them trouble in the middle of the game, whether it's a small or a big. When we saw him on Leyritz, or when we saw him on the point guard of Farmingdale State, he's the guy really taking it on. So it's really tough for OFEC to play 6-7 minutes here, 6-7 minutes there, and be impactful on the game because he's a guy that really needs to be on the court to impact. At the same token, he doesn't seem, other than the baseline drive, which is like his not just in the back door, but even the catch. He doesn't seem to be finding other places in the offense. I would have loved to see him last night in other games where the middle's open. He's a guy that can go right through the middle, drive right through his zone, and you don't see him getting the ball in the offense or looking to get the ball. He's just either staying on the baseline or drifting out to three and taking that 3-point shot, which should be the second or third or fourth look that he has. So you got to play him a little bit more consistently, but he has also got to be more aggressive. He's the best when he's aggressive on both sides of the ball.
So Bob, one of the things that we worry about now as Max fans is, you have this team, whether it was deserved or not. You take a team that was ranked number 1 in the top 25 polls in the country, and now all of a sudden they're like the number 3 seed in the Skyline.
Right, this is our big line last night, right, Ari? It's 6 weeks ago we were fans of the number 1 team in the country, and now we're fans of the number 3 team in Skyline, right? Like it's really where it's gotten to. But now we're going to ask. We have a concept in Judaism. Ari, you tell me if I get it wrong, right? But we talk about by the Passover Seder, right? We start with the lows, right? When we finish with the praise. So tell us why we should think. I love the quote. I think it was Ryan Wiedable who wrote at this point, or with Matt Snyder. One of them wrote, at this point, I could see Yeshiva not being there, or I could see them being in Fort Wayne, right? Like that's exactly what we feel. So what is the praise side of this? Like, what are the positives?
The praise side is
now's the time to lead your flock. Like, how do we?
The praise side about this is where your team plays its best. When you think of the evolution of this team into a national power, it was a lot of that was chip on the shoulder, and I know that from conversations I just had with fans, and I know that extended to players is, hey, what do you mean you're not ranking us 2 years ago? What do you mean, you're not ranking us in the top 5 when I'm ranking you 10? There's a healthy chip on the shoulder that existed that went away when Yeshiva became number 1, and I just think for most teams, it's easier to play as an underdog. And in your situation, even more so because of the magnifying glass and the spotlight that's on your program that no other program has to deal with. I don't mean that Illinois Wesleyan doesn't have a fan base and a lot of pressure, but we don't have what you guys have going on, like in terms of playing for a whole community, right? And a whole faith. And you watch when the buzzer sounds and those little kids run over to Ryan Terrell and Gabe, and it's like, it is a different deal. So the praise side of the answer here is that it's fine. It doesn't change anything. You're going to probably be in someone else's gym. You need to beat the same team. You've beaten all these teams in their gym anyway, like earlier this year, like a few weeks ago. So go be an underdog now. Go play in these games that you're going to win or go home and prove everyone wrong again. Now everyone doesn't believe in you again. You're not going to be ranked when that poll comes out tomorrow. Start to prove everyone wrong again and start the march back up. That's where Yeshiva played its best, and I believe can play its best. It won't surprise me if you guys are sitting there in the Sweet 16 in a couple of weeks. Not at all. You're very much talented enough to do it, but you got to start playing looser. And I think that starts with being a team no one believes in again.
Yeah.
I think you hit upon one thing I just want to talk about, which is nothing gets me more, again, it sort of reminds you what it's all about, right? Like I'll tell you, it was a little bit light last night. The fans weren't as into it because I think it was more shell shock to see St. Joe's, the game of St. Joe's versus Farmingdale we've been battling with for years, and just used to those close games. The MSAC was rocking, but both those games, like maybe it's because I'm old and I'm sentimental now, but seeing Ryan and the way he and everybody, the way they talk to the team and sign autographs and deal with the kids after losses is just, it feels so much more impactful than after wins in terms of what the kids take away. Right?
It's incredible.
They know they just saw him visibly. I mean, he was so much more visible. Upset last night because it felt more avoidable. The Farmingdale, was up 15. There was a crazy comeback. It was just exhausting. But last night's game, they were never down by more than 5 or 6 points at any point in the game. They felt strongly they should have taken that game, but it's just unreal to watch him literally 2 minutes after the game with lines, like 50 people deep, just kids waiting to. It's unreal.
And
it's not a lot of
just
kids that
reminds
would do that.
like it reminds me of like the NBA where like the Knicks just like killer dagger loss after dagger loss. It's to point you every single year, but it's better for the league when they're good because I mean, I'll never forget that IWU game when YU is good and good teams come to play them. I mean, the way that people walked up to Laritz and Lambesis, guys that, you know, people in our fan base didn't know the year before, all of a sudden they're walking up to them in the gym and asking them for jerseys and asking them for autographs. And like, and I remember I was reading, there was a story in one of the local Illinois papers where I think Laritz was quoted as saying something like, this was the closest I felt to playing in the NBA.
Yes,
like,
right.
you know what I mean? And it was great. I love that. And it's so good for D3, I think, for YU to be playing good ball. And so it's just so disappointing to see these kinds of, you know, low confidence games. But now, you know, Bob, I guess to kind of look ahead, does the St. Joe's Connecticut game now become almost like a liability? Meaning nothing we do against that team is gonna bring us any of the credit we need to be ranked or whatever.
Not what you originally set it up for. You originally set it up to replace the Williams game,
right?
To be an opportunity to win a regionally ranked opponent game.
Right.
So now, but it's still an enormous game because if you can go win that game, and I tell you what, I'm going to say this right now. I think the Macs are the favorite Thursday in that game. I think they're going to win that game. I think they're going to play great.
I'm checking the Massey index.
Massey will probably.
By the way, for the fans out there, this is Bob's most clever anti-yeshiva move yet. The jujitsu reverse jinx is so good. I love it.
No. I believe this. I believe that they will win Thursday, and I bet Massey has the Max winning that game. I can't remember where. No, they probably have St. Joe a little higher, right? Yeah, it's not much. But the reason it's big, Ari, is because you need to beat a good team rolling into the Skyline tournament. You got to beat somebody. The other thing I want to say is too, we need a little perspective check. Yeshiva's lost 3 games all year long. 3 games. Illinois Wesleyan's lost 4 games. So, I mean, 3 games, that's pretty good. So you lost to a national power in a game that you could say came down to the first half. You know, you played bad for half against Illinois Wesleyan. And then you got 2 other losses. Now, I always feel like in a year, you get a mulligan for 1 game. Illinois Wesleyan lost to Concordia of Illinois. Okay. They played 6 games in 12 days. Let's give them a free pass, mulligan. You've only got really 1 game outside of that. Like, so pick one of those 2, Farmingdale or the Long Island game. You shouldn't have lost one of those. Okay. That's the way I'm like, this is perspective here. You've got a great record. And it's time to just figure it out and play some basketball. And you're actually not in this dire situation. You still have a chance. You control your own destiny to get in the NCAA tournament. If you win, you will get in. It's that simple. You're not relying on anything else at this point. So I just want to make sure that everyone's also realizing that things like the sky hasn't fallen in or caved in quite yet.
Yeah, I think still as a fan base and in general still fully expect them to win the Skyline. I think it's the not just the 2 losses in the last 3 games, but the going like all you have to hear about for the first 20 games is they're in the Skyline Conference, they don't play anyone, right? And now you sit here and they're not number 1 in the Skyline Conference, right? They're not even going to be the home seed in the tournament for the Skyline Conference, right? And so there is that. But I completely agree with you. I think, you know, even though they're no longer, no matter what, they're not going to be under the radar. I think under the radar has flown by, but underdog, right, is still available, and sort of not having the pressure of expectation. Definitely, I think there was a big, sort of like a big both sigh of relief and the loss. During the loss to IW, right? Like, meaning such a high riding that 50-win streak, such a sense of emotion. Hey, it's over. We don't have to think about the streak anymore. But you know, that long break. I think that Williams game, we go back to it. Being able to get back on your horse and play Williams, 6 days later, 4 days later,
agree. Would have been
completely
perfect.
Changes everything versus waiting 4 weeks. Because I came out of the second half of the IW game and said, "Wow, all right." they can go toe to toe for a half. I didn't think there was that much to tweak, and that's why I'm so surprised with all the rotation and other changes going on, because I really didn't think that there was a whole lot there. It was sort of like getting ready for that punch. Like they just hadn't played in a game like that of that magnitude, but we're seeing some more cracks and flaws potentially of their own creation in some ways. But we're seeing a little bit more of that play out in these last couple of games. And
the great thing, as long as you figure it out, that's all that matters. Because look, I look at it this way: Illinois Wesleyan's been in the Final Four 6 times, and only one of those 6 went in as the CCIW regular season champion. One. So what does that tell you? It tells you that if you're playing well at the right time, that's all that matters. If they can figure this out, that's why this St. Joe, Connecticut game is important. You got to play well in that game. If you play well in that game, guess what? You go into the Skyline tournament feeling really good all of a sudden. We just beat one of the top 10 teams in the country. All that matters is figuring it out right now. Everyone knows they have the talent to get the Skyline championship, win the first 2 NCAA, get themselves in the Sweet 16. So like, this is very doable. They just have to decide on a rotation. I would simplify a few things defensively. Seems like they're trying to do too much helping and things. I would play more just straight up man to man.
Just stick man to man, exactly.
Just not like all the diving into the lane and like, I think they're gambling too much. I'm not an X's and O's guy. I'm just telling you that, like, I'm watching your games this morning. And so many guys are shooting threes just wide open. And so I would simplify things on both sides of the floor. I would find a way to set the rotation where guys know when they're coming in and what their role is. I would try to get Ofek shots. I would go into a game trying to get him going early. If you get that guy feeling good again, it changes everything. So again, just perspective here. It's okay to go through a lull in February as long as you figure it out late February.
Right. Although I'll tell you, here's speaking of one thing that earlier in the year we all noticed as fans, and it annoyed us, but it was more of an irritating buzz in the background. But now that we have this kind of late January, early February slump, I think it's become something that's more of a sore point with all of us, and that is the whining, the complaining to the refs, the bad body language. I think there was someone on Twitter who saw that, YU has like the worst body language in the league. And I think there's something to that. It's gotten to the point now where I don't think there's one MAC who ever thinks they've committed a foul over the course of a 40-minute game. And I at a certain point, we've been seeing Eitan Halpert do this for his entire career with the Max, and it's kind of like you live by the Eitan, you die by the Eitan. I'm willing to almost live with it. But it's weird to see some of the more level-headed guys do it. And I wonder if, I don't know what you guys think, if that is kind of, in a way, a little bit of a proxy for the confidence issue that they're dealing with now. And if maybe that's part of the beginning of the solution to cutting down. Like, just the refs are going to be refs. Just play your game, right? Am I onto something here?
I think it's a good example of kind of that everyone's not quite feeling that great on the floor. And look at that Farmingdale game. There were some terrible calls.
Unquestionably. I think and someone did a whole thread worth of them,
Yeah, there were some terrible calls, and someone told me that, and I can't confirm this, that there was some chatter going on between one of the officials and some of your guys. Just weird chatter that it shouldn't be happening, and so I can't confirm any of that. All I'm saying is, if you're letting yourself get baited into that, right, you're probably not where you wanted to be or where you were in November, December. Because November, December, they wouldn't have cared. They just would have kept beating someone by 30 points and making shots. I think it does show you that they're just not quite right if they're worried about calls. But I get the Farmingdale State calls, because I'm here to tell you there were some horrendous calls that mattered late in that game. They shouldn't have been in that position, but there were game-changing type calls that happened late in that one, I thought.
Yeah, there was an interesting game. Us being there live, basically was also a little bit. You got to see it from the fans also. So I know the refs were hearing, from the fans there, and I'd never seen the parent section actually so up in arms about calls ever before. But it was there were some interesting things happening there. I think we're past it. I won't mention it, but I saw something I had never seen, a ref do in a game. But it was just interesting. Like, it felt like they wanted to get near the player that was complaining to set up for some sort of confrontation. It felt like, again, when you're the ref, the best thing that happens is nobody knows you're there, right? You just go call the game. So the refs are fantastic. The refs, collectively, you're going to get it every game, right? You want every call, right? You're a player. You want every single call. You always do that, whether you're winning or losing. But Ari, we like to argue, don't we? Isn't that just like a natural trait? Like, that's what we're trained from little kids, right? In Talmud class, they tell us, we just argue, right? We're supposed to do it respectfully, but we're trained to argue. So this is a little bit of our own making, right?
Some of it's body language too. So Ari, you asked about complaining to the officials. I would take it a little more to body language. There were some shots last night that St. Joe hit that were very improbable shots. I mean, with I can't remember the time and situation. The kid drives in the lane. He's really well guarded. Throws the ball up with his left hand, I think, and somehow it goes off the backboard in. Then a kid shoots a three from the left wing or the left corner, right in front of their bench. It bounces up, and I think it hits.
Yep, I remember that
25% 3-point shooter, right? And
it bounced.
And he got to roll on the other side too. It was unreal.
It went so straight through that you couldn't see the net move, and I'm like, did that go in? And then I saw Yeshiva taking the ball out of bounds. I was like, oh crap, that went in. But where I'm going is the body language on your players. Both of those, just little subtle things I could see. It was like, it was just not good. It was like, here we go again. And I get it. Like, here we go again. Crap. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know how to turn that around, but I feel like that your guys have to go back to playing for themselves. At some point, the reason they were playing and having fun is they were playing as a team and playing for each other. And, you guys have so much outside pressure coming in where truly every time they take the floor, I don't know that they're playing for each other. They're playing for this community. And I think that's a lot to put on a bunch of 21-year-old kids, to be honest with you, 21-year-old young men. If I were the guys and I were Coach Steinmetz, I would find a way to make it about us. This is about us, like, people can be happy with, they can live with us or die with us, whatever, but this is about us. And I feel like your guys aren't having fun just playing for each other. And somehow they got to find that.
After the IWU game, we talked about at that point, the montage we needed was the Rocky IV montage, where you're out in the snow in Siberia and you're pulling the plow and getting ready for Drago. Right now, we're at the point I think we're at the point in a different movie. Maybe like Mighty Ducks 2. This is the montage in Mighty Ducks 2 where we need all the guys on rollerblades, skating through the mall, making trouble, and then going see a movie together. Just have a little fun.
No, I can keep it Rocky IV if you want. I can keep it Rocky IV. Do you remember? Do you remember when the Russian fans, Ari, started booing Drago in Russia?
Yeah, it's the best.
I kind of feel like right now,
the moment where Rocky Balboa wins the Cold War.
Do you remember when? Right. So all of a sudden, the Russian fans are booing him, and I feel there's kind of that vibe going on where you guys love the team still, but there's a lot of chatter going on. And I think Drago, he got on the mic or something. He's like, I do this for myself or whatever. I do it
for me.
So go watch that scene. I know I'm close. The guys have to do this for themselves. They need to not worry about all this crap around them, as important as it is, and they need to play for each other. And I just don't feel like they're having any fun right now. Somehow they got to get back and play basketball.
I love this take. This is a great take because our problem is we thought we were Rocky Balboa. We're Ivan Drago, gosh darn it. We need to remember that these capitalists, pigs are, we got to put these guys in their place. We have the rocket launcher punch. We have all the athleticism. These fans don't get it. I love this take.
When David becomes Goliath, is this what happens?
I'm just telling you, you got to think of it this. So here, I was thinking of this earlier.
I'm a big Dolph Lundgren stan, so I get it.
I am too. But look, there's all these things on Twitter where people are breaking down videos of this kid is out of position here and this guy's not boxing out. And you think these guys don't know that?
Right.
I get it that your program's at a point where it's kind of like playing for a Division I team in terms of media exposure. I get it, but You don't think it puts pressure on a kid when he takes the floor at the max turn and people are breaking down his defensive rotations and screenshots? His own fans. I tell you what, Illinois Wesleyan fans wouldn't do that, because kids are on Twitter, and I want them feeling good going into a game. I want Matt Laird's feeling like $1 million. So all I'm saying is I don't think it's helping the cause to put all this pressure on these guys. I know it's not. It cannot possibly be helping the cause. That's all I'm going to say.
I love this take also. This is great. Listen, I think, if we're kind of looking on the positive ends of this, you've said this, Bob, and others have said it as well. The MSAC is just an awesome arena. It is when it's rocking, it is one of the most rocking arenas. And D3, I think you're on record with this, Bob.
It's the loudest place I've ever been in 30 years of following. It's the loudest place I've ever been. There's Coach Katz.
Yeah, this is why. This is one of the reasons why it's rocking.
Unbelievable
Exactly.
venue.
You name the devil, he shows up. I love it. So
well, this is LA Rams fan Donnie Katz, right?
Yeah.
Coach LA Rams fan Coach Katz.
I'm coming
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm coming off something good. I don't know if it's the same as when we won conference and then the tournament a couple years ago, but
it's like a crazy.
And guys, I warmed up the seat for Coach Katz, and I'm going to let you guys go. But I'm going to tell you what is I appreciate. I weaseled my way onto your show because I felt like I had things to say here. I'm watching that game. I said we got to talk this through. So I kind of shamed you guys and invite me on. I appreciate you doing it, and I want to do this again. Like when you beat St. Joe, Connecticut, I want you to have the show where Bob told us that was going to happen. Okay, can I get on the post game on that?
Absolutely. That is scheduled.
Delivered.
Okay.
Hey, listen, if you want, by the way, if you want to like really push the limits, which is okay with us, we may be calling the game on Tuesday night. We got an away game, and we always need help on the color and whatever it is. So if you find yourself bored on a Tuesday night, feel free to jump on. I know your radio skills were awesome. I listened to you in the other broadcast.
I'm in it. I'll just leave you with this, guys. Is where I kind of started with this is perspective. You've only lost 3 games all year, right? You got a great team. You got the best player in the country. You got another kid who's All-American. You got all kinds of good players. If you can just figure things out,
it's gonna be awesome.
Have guys feeling good, things are just fine. So you guys go get them, and I'm going to talk to you maybe Tuesday, but certainly after the big St. Joe, Connecticut win.
The chief has spoken.
Thank
you so much, Bob.
See you, boys. Thank you.
At IW HoopsCom, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Bob, for
guys.
being with
Thank
us.
you.
See you later. And now we're
Always good stuff.
We're joined by the legend himself, Coach Donnie Katz. Thank you so much for being with us. This is awesome.
I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. I'm not sure if just to say greetings, Natan Cohen. I'm not sure if you sort of like I haven't met a number of folks.
I think I saw you 2 games ago.
Yeah, we try to come with my girls to most of the games. We like sitting in the players' family section because they really get into it. We love it. They get excited. They're right behind the bench there, and they're awesome. They're awesome. Thank God. But I played with Elliot years ago. Elliot and I were on the team together many moons ago with Coach Halpert. So love the Max. Always loved playing with Elliot, and loved again being a big fan both the Max. So we love talking this. Welcome on the show again. We could probably talk football more because I really want to understand how you were feeling. Because it's like one of those, right? Like really high first halves, then like, hey, did OBJ take the offense with him when he left the field? So I want to know how that roller coaster went.
There are a lot of videos involved. My wife was here. I came down to be with my dad for the game. He's a diehard Rams fan for life. So I surprised him to come down. And I was here to watch it with him, and it was a roller coaster of emotions. A lot of videos to prove it, but towards the end, it was a little nerve-wracking, but we got it done.
They almost took this thing away from you with the missed call on the face mask.
It should have been called, and thank God we got some calls late in the game, which were actually penalties. So at least they called those.
Yeah, that moment when you get up and you think you're just gonna go out and grab something from the fridge or something, and you come back and like you missed a touchdown, and then you start yelling at the TV. So yeah, I experienced that tonight. I stepped away to put a kid to bed, and the next thing I know, it's like
Yeah.
Wait, the third quarter just started. I don't understand what's happening. But again, you
Yeah,
you have fandom relying on it.
Yeah, Miss Call and OBJ hurt us going out, which is tough for him because he was gonna have a big game tonight. So
I want to hear the origin story on
um, yeah,
Baltimore, LA Rams, or St. Louis, or where was it? I mean, it's your dad, so I'm imagining
yeah.
it's LA. But what's the connection? What's the origin story?
I hate every Baltimore team fan. I mean, I hate every Baltimore team because I hate all the Baltimore fans.
Me too, but without the legitimacy that you hate them.
And my dad grew up in Wilkes-Barre, and his first football car was Eric Dickerson. So there's nobody to root for in Wilkes-Barre. So he said, "I'm just gonna be a Rams fan." So and then I grew up and I just became a Rams fan, and I was there through the times of Mark Bolger and the St. Louis Rams and Jeff Fisher, and now I get to experience, Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford.
I grew up a Flipper Anderson, Jim Everett, those guys way back in the day.
Yeah,
I was an LA guy. I like both the Rams and the Raiders, and the Raiders went back to Oakland. We took another in Vegas. Now I have no team because I can't go back and forth all the time. I just love football.
It's not allowed.
I'll figure it out.
Speaking of
Maybe I'll adopt the McVay.
Speaking of the greatest show on turf, let's talk about the greatest show on the hard court. Our beloved Chief University Maccabees. So, what has the transition been like going from building from a player who took a chance on building a program to being one of the most recognizable faces of a beloved team to being on the coaching staff? What's that transition been like for you?
It's definitely different. When I was playing, I felt like, you could be the player coach. So that's what I kind of felt like, my role was, and just to make sure things get done. And now it's hard to, not be on there and playing with the guys that I played with. And then, trying to adapt from a coaching perspective, and, they still trust me from the sidelines and we still go over things, but it's hard to not be on there with them and play with them and just kind of, not guide them, but just be there to make sure things, on the court were going the right way. And now it's just from the sidelines, it's a little different perspective, and it's a little different, and it's a little harder for me.
In the communication, in terms of, because I think Elliott's known for having a very open communication channels with his players, right? So was there much in the transition in terms of, you feeling the comfort level in communicating, when you were a player, and now did that change at all, right? Sort of as a coach, or the types of things you would communicate about?
No, I mean, I give a lot of props to Elliott, the way his coaching style and the way he lets his players play, and with the freedom he lets them play with. Not many coaches will do that. With the way the offense is run, and the freedom that he gives us is tremendous, and something that I'm very grateful for. For my college career, it made me look better than maybe I was. But the communication that we had, player to coach, was unbelievable and very easy for him and myself. When we started this a long time ago, I don't remember what year it was, 2015, when I was graduating. I told him we were going to win. we were going to do something special and win the championship here, and then go to the NCAA tournament. And he said, "You're nuts." And I said, "Okay, maybe I'm nuts, but we're going to get it done." And then, he till this day, I think he's mentioned it a couple of times in his interviews, but it came to fruition, which was unbelievable. And now we're at the top where we should be.
I think one of the most iconic Donnie Katz plays I can remember. I think it was maybe the championship game against Purchase. You're diving on the floor for a ball, and you turn around and fire a pass cross court. I think to cutting Eitan Alpert, who goes in for a layup. Amazing.
Yeah, the full court to Ryan. I think it was to Ryan. So that play, I knew they came down in transition, and I knew we had to guard Perdomo from the outside because he was our number one. He was our number one guy from outside. So you got to know that we can't let him shoot. So I just forced him to dribble and go to the rim, and I know it'd be tough for him to make buckets there because he struggles to do it. And then we got to end up getting a long rebound. But as the play was, Ryan and Ofek, I think they missed a dunk or they missed a pass, and I remember that they were still going to be down there, so I knew I had to close that high on Perdomo for him to go to the rim. And then once we had a long outlet rebound, I knew Ryan and Ofek were there, but I knew Ofek was the first guy back and Ryan was deeper. And I remember just turning around, and I knew Ryan was going to be there, and I knew they had a guy like with Ofek, but I knew if I could get it to Ryan quick enough, we could score a layup in transition, and that's how it happened. I just knew they were behind me, and I know when anybody's up the court at all times, because that's the easiest way to get a bucket. The ball moves faster with the pass than the dribble.
That's I love the backstories of these iconic plays, and that actually touches on
But we're making an NFT, right? We have an NFT coming with that play. Is I think we talked about after this. Should be able to get that on.
Oh my God! Listen, it's NIL rules are changing. Let's get a Donnie Katz NFT.
Exactly.
So,
does it affect coaches too, or just players? I don't know. We got to get clarification on that.
Talk to my agents.
seriously, exactly. So as you guys are now almost in a similar place, right? So I remember leading up to that, and I say that with as kind of like an enthusiastic fan right now, because the energy going into that Skyline conference was electric. Some of the easiest money Nalton has ever won was from Akiva Poppers betting on the viewership of that IWU game, because Poppers took the position that nothing would surpass that Skyline conference. Although I don't even know if he was referring to that Skyline championship game. He may have been, but it just speaks to how awesome the energy was around that conference. And I think some of it was just the drama of like not having seen YU in that position really many times before, with a team that we really believed in, that we thought could make some noise in the tournament. And now here we are again, a little bit of a different kind of way, right? And, coming in with a little bit more, buzz at the beginning of the season and finding, running into some disappointing losses. But still, here we are in a competitive Skyline conference. And, looking ahead to getting into the tournament, we got to go through that conference just like we always knew we'd had to. But, now it kind of seems like a little bit more pressure. So how do you and the coaching staff get the team ready for the stretch ahead, making your way through this Skyline bracket?
I mean, for us, it's just prep them as best we can and give them the tools to win and leave it in their hands. But the greatest thing that we offer to our players is that we give them the freedom to do what they need to do what they can do, and we give them the tools to do that at the same time, so that we have a free flowing offense and we have a defense that we have principles and we're disciplined on. And if they can do that at a high level, which we the entire coaching staff believes we can, and we will, then we're going to make a lot of noise here. And, teams go through slumps. My junior year, we went through a slump. The start of Ryan's freshman year, so my junior year, I think we started 1-5. There are slumps that we hit. And then at the end of that slump, you're going to pick it up and you're going to figure out how to win games, and the team will come together and figure out how to win games. And we're going to string wins together as the year ends. And then we're going to play in the conference tournament. We're going to win that conference tournament. We're going to go to the NCAA tournament, probably being underseeded, and make noise when we go to the NCAA tournament and really make a run for this national title.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's awesome to hear. I think as you talk about sort of the specific contest, right, that you have in front of you, I think one of the things that Ari mentioned, I just want to see if there's anything to it. Obviously, the last few games you had at the start of the season, right? You played a couple of these teams, right? That the Skyline losses game the last back-to-back Saturday nights, right? And it seemed to be a 28-point win on Westbury, who you ended up beating, by 6. We ended up winning that game, and then Farmingdale by 14, even though they played a really tough game. I remember that both Farmingdale and St. Joe's were the first halves were incredibly close. And then it would sort of pull away a little bit in the second half, and then the Macs have been sort of known to be a second half team. Right. But a lot of these are young players, right? And are you seeing, like, talk about the talent that we're seeing in the Skyline? Like, do you feel that the teams themselves, right? These coaches obviously have been for years, but are the teams getting better? We saw a number of freshmen in the last few games, right, actually lead some of those, and the underclassmen, lowerclassmen lead some of these the teams with Farmingdale and with St. Joe's and some of the plays they made.
Yeah, I mean, though St. Joe's is in a rebuild. So, when I was there, they've had 3 different coaches, right? So the last guy here, he's doing a wonderful job, and he's really going to bring this program over the top. And they're young and they're ready to go. So, Farmingdale's always been just a team that, like, you're just going to play with. It's like, Boston, New York in a 7-game series. It's like the same thing. It's the same idea. Duke, Carolina. Every once in a while, Duke will kill Carolina, but it's always going to be close, regardless of who's extremely better than the other. He does a great job over there, and he recruits well, and he brings in guys well, and these teams are going to be good. And they hit, at times, it's hard to string together some wins, right? So winning games is hard at any level. That's just a fact, right? So, and you're going to lose games here and there, but when you lose games, you learn from those experiences, and you're going to hit a brick wall, and then we got to climb through the brick wall. And once we climb through the brick wall and start stringing wins together, which we're going to do, and then go into the, and like I said, go into the conference playoffs and get ready to win those. And then when we hit those strides, and we're going to meet them again, and we're going to be ready to play. And we're going to keep in mind the losses that we've had previously to them. Once we do that, and we get that full push forward, we're going to be a hard team to beat. Once we get things rolling and start stringing wins together, we're just a little bit of a slump now. But every great team always has a hurdle to go over.
So what do you take away from these losses, right? Farmingdale, and that Long Island team, as someone sitting on the sideline and who knows our team and our system better than anybody, and having actually seen these teams and played against these teams, what are some of the takeaways in the offensive and defensive end from the Farmingdale and the St. Joe's game?
It's just when you watch film over, we just miss some things on the defensive end. We're missing. We're giving a little too many middle drives here, and we're not moving the ball as well. And it's just things that happen within the offense. Like the offense is hard to get down, and when it works at its best, at its top level, it looks just like a symphony. It just looks unbelievable. So it takes time to really grab the offense and make it extremely fun to watch. And like I said, it's going to happen within these next few games as our guys are giving their full effort to go and practice, and we're giving our full effort to help them get there. What you take away from that is that you got to learn from your mistakes. You got to learn to see what you did wrong, go in film session and study what we did wrong, and then how we're going to prepare for that, when we meet them in the playoffs. And, Farmingdale is a team we usually meet in the playoffs, and it's usually a very close game every year, like I said. And we live for that rivalry in the playoffs, and we want to be on top every single time. And we're going to learn from the games that we played, against St. Joe's and Farmingdale, and get ready to play them in the playoffs. And we're going to review what we need to review and figure out what our mistakes were. And then once we do that, we're going to capitalize when it comes time to play.
Talking about some of the changes, just to in terms of changes that actually have happened, right? And if you talk to them in terms of sort of what you guys saw, right, as either a coaching staff or otherwise, because obviously we talked about just before with Bob, and he brought up and something we have seen too in terms of some lineups or a little bit more experimentation with the rotation. One of the changes in specific, right, the last two games coming out of the Farmingdale game where Matan basically played most of the second half, is that Matan ended up starting, right, the last two games. And again, the minutes tend to go back and forth regardless of who starts and who doesn't start. But what was specifically seen that sort of said, hey, I think we need to change that starting lineup?
It's just, when you play, when you're playing throughout the year, you as a coach, you figure out adjustments that are better to be made and maybe are better suited for the personnel that we're playing with. Tani gives us great energy. He gives us great fight. And I think for us to start off the way, start off that game, it'll give us a little fire under our belt to really get going. And then, we bring in 6'7" and 6'8" off the bench with Jordan, and he's just another guy that we can bring in that can rebound, that can block, that can finish at the rim. So we just want to see that switch and see how it will play out. And we're going to continue to ride with that switch. And that's another thing that we, when you start stringing together the wins that we're going to start putting together, it's going to be based on the personnel and how things have shifted and how things are going to come together. And I think Tani and Jordan going back and forth, is going to be that way. It's, when I was playing, we had the same idea, not necessarily starting, but, I would come out for 10 minutes and then we'd bring in a guy off the bench for 30 minutes. And we won the game, and I couldn't care less. I just want to win basketball games. And so it's the same idea here. It's just that, Tani's starting and Jordan's doing that. So, if you switched it around, it'd be the same idea. And, maybe Tani plays 10 minutes and Jordan plays 30 and 30 plays 30. So that's just the same idea, just starting versus not starting. It's about, how we finish it and who's going to finish the game for us.
So looking ahead, the big outlier game on the schedule, and certainly the most interesting game from a strength of schedule perspective, is the St. Joe's Connecticut game. Mm-hmm. How are you guys thinking about that game? How are you approaching it?
We're getting our scout ready, but we're doing a scouting report for it. I'll be watching some games over the next couple of days, along with preparing for Vincent. It's going to be a test. It's going to be a test for us. And we love playing big games. We love the atmosphere and the buzz around it, and we want to be challenged. In order to this is cliche, but in order to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that's just something that we've thankfully have gotten to experience over the past couple of years. Since I started here, and now we're at that top of the level where we are the best, and people want to beat us. We're everybody's home run. So for us to play St. Joe's, Connecticut, we want to feel that challenge, and we want to prove ourselves. We've taken a couple of hits lately, and there's doubters. There's doubters out there now that Yeshiva's not all that good, and they're really they're not they should belong in the top 25 and everything along those lines. And we want to prove people wrong. That's something that we've been trying to do since I've been here, since my freshman year, and we're trying to continue that right now. And I'm happy to be the underdog, because when you're the underdog, the only expectations are to go high, and when you lose, but when you're the underdog and you come on top, it's just, makes it for a magical story. And that's what I hope we're going to do here.
I love it. And by the way, I'm getting like major Mighty Ducks 2 vibes from this team, right? Came in number 1 ranked at the beginning of the season, had some bad losses, but we have like Jordan Armstrong, who's basically Dean Portman. He's like got the ponytail. He's exactly as cool as that. We have Ofek Reef, classic, like that cowboy guy with the crazy hair. Right. We got Matan Zucker and Jordan are the Bash brothers anyway. Yeah. We have our finesse All-American player in Adam Banks, Ryan Terrell. I mean, the parallels are uncanny. I can go on with this is like my favorite take on the spot.
We just don't have a knuckle puck time.
Exactly. Now's the time. I mean, now's the time to start getting it together. We have the big collective. We have some of these big games coming up to get into the tournament, and then we have the collective Iceland of the the big teams in the in the Northeast and the Midwest to take care of business. But moving into the final stretch of the season, what's the message that you are bringing to these players that as someone who was kind of the most recently a player, you may have a different perspective than, let's say, Elliot or Coach Schwartz. Like, what's the message that you can bring as someone who was in this spot not that long ago, that these players need to hear in this stretch?
Embrace the challenge, embrace the atmosphere. You guys got to, we want to win games, and you got to realize that you are the underdog. You'll always be the underdog, whether that's because you're from Yeshiva or something else. People are always going to doubt you. Use the doubt as fuel. Right. And embrace the challenge, and embrace the fact that we have bigger goals in mind. And these guys do have bigger goals in mind, and they want to win. It's just about stringing some wins together. It's just about getting over the hump that every great team faces, and we have a great team and we have great talent. And we're going to put it together, and we're going to get ready to win these next couple of games and go into the playoffs and win these next couple of games. Teams that see Yeshiva, that they have to play them in the playoffs, and then eventually, hopefully, in the tournament. It's not something that they want to see. And that's the ideology that you want to pass on to these guys. And we're going to string wins together, both defensively on the defensive end and on the offensive end. And we're going to be a machine doing that. And that's the plan. And that's, the message that we're going to tell the guys. Put in the work, put in the practice, and you're going to see, you're going to see the outcome that you want to see. And it's going to be a good outcome for the better.
Yeah, I think one of the things, we talked about, a little earlier, right? Confidence level and maintaining a strong confidence level. I think one of the things that you guys sometimes don't see, right? Because you're in the locker rooms after the games. It's, by the way, amazing, both what Ryan and others are doing in terms of hanging out with the kids after. I mean, it's unreal. I still can't imagine what they're doing. But I got the fortune to walk out with a number of fans from St. Joe's last night, and I'm telling you, we walked out, and some guy was calling, and one of the assistant coaches was calling his friend on the phone, and we overhear a conversation basically saying, yeah, we just beat that team that 150. I mean, like that 150 game, right? Like that. Even if the streak is gone, right? Even if those things are gone, I think that the competition still knows, who Yeshiva is, and I don't think we can be under the radar anymore. But underdog might have a nice ring to it as it goes. But really, I think the respect among your peers is still incredibly impressive, and they're going to play up to it. And we love hearing that. I wanted to ask one last question off of sort of the off of the X's and O's things. I want to understand what happens at the Katz family Seder and other things like how is it a no basketball rules? Is it are the wives okay? Like, does anyone else get to talk about other things? Do we X and O the seating arrangements? Like, how does this work?
The wives, anytime that there's something that remotely related to basketball, they all give their eye roll. Thankfully, every one of my Baruch Hashem, every one of my siblings are married, and there's 4 daughter-in-laws, including my wife, and there's 1 brother-in-law. And my mother, is one of the better coaches out there. She's learned a lot from my dad. There's a lot of X's and O's. There's a lot of different basketball thinking compared to people that are watching the game today that I got to grow up with. And I think I've translated that, through my playing days, from high school to college and now to the coaching. So a Cats Family Theater can involve a lot of who's the greatest of all time. Why isn't, Duke running the stuff that they used to when Redick and Sheldon Williams and Carlos Boozer and Battier were there? Chris Duhon, Gerald Henderson, guys like that. Why aren't they doing that? Coach K's just folded. He's old, things along those lines. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and we like watching beautiful offenses, and I think YU has one, and it is there has been times where it has been a machine, and we will get to that this year, and it's going to be exciting for fans to watch. It's going to be exciting for people on the sidelines to watch. It's going to be a great atmosphere, and we're going to get back to fun basketball, and we're just going to get over this hurdle that every great team goes through. And we have great leadership, and we have great guys in order to get that done, and that's going to feel bad.
I'm a Pac-12 guy. Nothing makes me feel older than seeing Bobby Hurley on the sidelines.
Yeah.
It's like literally like, we watched and idolized that, hey, Kristen Leitner, those teams playing. And I'm like, oh my God, he's coaching Arizona State and he's got some.
So yeah,
unbelievable. I love it. Well, listen, Coach Cat.
A lot of gray hairs going on. I know it's going to
be. Well, Coach Donnie Katz, this has been amazing. It's been such a pleasure to have you and a privilege to have you. We love our Max. We're so excited to see the run you guys are going to make in this latter bit of the season. So excited to see you guys in the Skyline Conference. Hopefully see you guys in the championship and then the NCAA tournament. You're doing an amazing job on the sideline. Shouts to Coach Katz. Shouts to Bob Quillman for joining us. Excited for the upcoming game. And please, as Mayor Wiesel, our amazing producer on the ones and twos, always tells me to tell you, subscribe to the Ball of Bottom on YouTube. Keep watching us. Keep following. Keep believing. The ending of Mighty Ducks 2 is pretty rad. Watch it. Let's get this done. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah, I don't think Baltimore is not going to go wild for this Rams win. So how are you guys going to so I don't think there are going to be cars turning over on the street. So maybe actually in Baltimore that may be happening anyways. But
regardless,
how's the Rams celebration? What are you guys going to do? Is anything planned?
We did a lot of yelling. We were watching the postgame game day with Stafford and everybody like that. So we had our fair share of celebration, and I'll watch everything on social media the next day.
It's awesome. It's by the way the most fun I've experienced it only 1 or 2 times in my lifetime. But the post the whole week post your team winning is almost as good as the game itself. It's literally just makes you feel like the top of the world. It is awesome. Enjoy it. Again, you've earned it after many years of sort of almost getting there. Everyone should go see the Kurt Warner movie together and just hug. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah. Soak up all the podcasts. Listen to Bill Simmons tomorrow. It's all gonna be great.
I'll listen to my Dan Orlovsky, as he was the only one that backed Matthew Stafford. So
awesome. Have a wonderful. That's awesome. Have a wonderful night. Congrats to the whole family, and looking forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday.
Yeah,
exactly. In advance, Yashikoach to our Max. We love it. Amazing. Peace.
Keep it up, guys. Keep it up, guys. A lot of people like you. Keep it up. It's very fun to listen.
Shkaya.
Pleasure.
Love it. All the best.
Roll, Max, roll.
Roll, Max, roll. Thank you.
Pleasure, Ari. A pleasure.
As always. Geschmack. Unbelievable. Oh my God. That was a good 1-2 punch there. It's pretty awesome.
This is a classic one. Listen, what Bob followed by Donnie? Literally.
On Twitter, it's been awesome.
I'm pinching myself.
Ryan Scott was listening to the segment with Bob, and he's like, "Listen, I was going to ask you guys to come on after the St. Joe's game, but Bob's getting all the airtime." So
listen, I'll gladly keep Bob in the waiting room when we have Ryan on.
So I wrote back about hashtag D3 Hoops block party. Let's get this going.
Listen, if we can get, maybe we've been thinking about this all wrong. Should we get Bob and Ryan to call the game on Tuesday?
Oh my God! Can you imagine? We should do, that's amazing.
It's unreal. Like this is what it's become. It's the we think it's like we were thinking that the extra max fandom was going to be from Israel or other but we found another place in the
WhatsApp group.
Right, or the WhatsApp group. But we found another place in the diaspora where we can make this happen. So
Shem, unbelievable.
It's wonderful.
All
if
right.
you remember, by the way, just to finish up as you like to do, with thoughts of Torah, go back and watch the tape. I don't know if everyone noticed, but the game-winning drive for the Rams started with 6:13 on the clock. So go back, get ready, look at correct me if I'm wrong. 6:13 on the clock. You knew it was going to happen, and therefore it was there. Donnie Katz.
Kayak time. I love it.
it's what it is. Everybody enjoy, and we'll talk again real soon. I hope not too soon because I don't want to do a Tuesday post game with alarm bells ringing. So let's get Thursday going.
Let's make it happen.
We'll talk the game.
Shkaya. See you guys soon.
Have an awesome night. Bye.